Welcome to Mac Geek Gab, episode 923 for Monday, April 11th, 2022. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Mac Geek Gab, the show that takes your questions, your tips, your cool stuff found about Apple and all related and sometimes unrelated tech products and concepts and software and all of that stuff. We take all of your questions, your tips, your cool stuff found. We add in some quick tips and cool stuff found of our own sometimes even some questions of our own. We're all one community here. We mash it all together into an agenda, and then we go through that agenda together, answering your questions, sharing all these tips, sharing all this stuff, with the goal being that each of us, me, John, Pete, you, every single one of us, we each learn at least 5 new things every single time we get together. Sponsors for this episode include BBEdit from Barebones Software, Kolide at kolide.com/MGG, Trade, some of the most fantastic, the only coffee that's ever made me like coffee, from drinktrade.com/MGG, where you can get $20 off your first 3 bags, and hunterdouglas.com/MGG, custom shades and more. And you can go there and get your Freestyle Get Smarter design guide. We will talk more in depth about each and every one of those sponsors a little bit later in the show. For now, here in Durham, New Hampshire, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in Fairfield, Connecticut, this is John F. Braun.
And, you know, Pete's here, folks, but mute buttons are a funny thing. They make it so you can't really hear.
Wait, what? I heard it. I heard myself. Boy, I'm glad I've never done that before.
Yeah. There is a first time for everything.
Yeah.
You know?
In Lee, New Hampshire this week is Pilot Pete. Thanks for having me.
It's glad to have you back, man.
I forgot I muted myself.
Yeah. No, it's good. Hey, you learned, like, the good news is, like, you get to check off one of your 5. Like, that's how it is.
Trainable, yes.
Yeah, it's good. Hey, being trainable, neuroplasticity, man, like that. If there is one thing at the core of this show, it is coming in prioritizing neuroplasticity, because without it, you can't learn your 5 new things. So,
I'm kidding.
Yeah,
it gets harder though. I can attest to that.
Oh, same. You can remind yourself of one of the things by going to macgeekgab.com/merch, though, and getting one of our Don't Get Caught logo t-shirts. So go check that out. I'm not wearing one today, but I think I was last week. If you check the videos that we do, you can see them. Again, not this week's, though. I'm wearing my, about 5 or 6 years ago, I bought a t-shirt that's more expensive than ours, a $45 t-shirt at the Apple store at the Apple Park in Cupertino, the new one. And so I am dollar cost averaging the price of this shirt down by wearing it as often as I can on the show.
There you go.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of things that I learned, one that I learned literally this morning, all week, and really quite often recently, I have been having a problem where I go to load things in Safari and, like, websites either just don't let me in or they won't even load. And it's like, what is going on here? And then I would go load, Chrome, Firefox, Edge, and they work totally fine on the same computer. This is down on my Mac in my M1 Mac Mini in the office, which I think might be relevant to this. And so this morning, it happened again. I was trying to go to one of my banks. It was like discover.com or something. And so I looked in the preferences and I found something that I had not seen before. And I'm curious if you guys see this. I am on macOS Monterey 12.3.1 on that machine and on this one here in the studio. But this is a 2019 Intel iMac. And so if you go to Safari Preferences and go to the Privacy tab, you will see, I saw on my Mac Mini, so again, Safari Preferences, Privacy, there is the Hide IP Address section, and there's a checkbox that lets me hide IP address from trackers on this computer, But on my M1 Mini downstairs, either I have a different setting or it's different because it's an M1. I get two options with a drop down. One is hide IP address from trackers only. And then the other is hide IP address from trackers and websites, or maybe it's and websites and trackers. It's clear when you read it. I had it. It had it on hiding my IP address from both. So that's using iCloud Private Relay. I changed it to just hiding my IP address from trackers, and I was instantly able to get into all these websites that I was having trouble getting into. So I'm curious, do either of you see this drop down on your computers?
Dave, I'm looking at mine in Safari, and I've got a new M1 laptop, and I only have hide IP address from trackers.
So what the heck?
In the privacy tab, I've got prevent cross-site tracking.
Yeah.
Hide IP address from trackers.
That's separate. Yeah. And then there's
Block
the hide
all
IP
cookies.
address from trackers. John, do you have the drop down?
No, because I'm on Intel.
I clearly, Pete just proved it's not an M1 versus Intel thing.
Oh, all right.
Because Pete's on M1 and you are on 12.3.1. Yeah. Just to make sure, Pete.
I'm on Safari version 15.3, and my that's what I'm looking for. My operating system is
15.3.
Yeah, because I'm on 15.4 in
Me
both
too.
plates. Yeah. So,
and I'm 12.2.1.
oh, so you need to update, Pete.
I need to update. I'll do that right now and see you guys in an
that
hour.
sounds like a great idea.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
It's a perfect time for that.
Or could it just been a Discover thing? Because, I every now and then I'll have this happen.
Telling
with,
you that there is a drop down in Safari's preferences. So the question is, why is that? Right. And changing it instantly changed the problem, right? Like it definitely fixed it. So why do I have this drop down? Do either of you have Safari Technology Preview installed?
No,
I do not.
Okay, I do on both machines. So clearly that's not the deciding factor. Well, if anybody knows why I'm seeing this drop down and no one else is,
I most guarantee mine's because of I ain't updated, but
okay. So maybe it is an M1 thing, but it only is on Safari in 12.3.1. Okay,
yeah.
I'd buy that. Sure.
So I will. I'll get back to you later today on that. Then.
Okay, yeah, fascinating.
Though I did have a couple days ago, I got the message that you probably got. It's like, I use Discover as well for a number of things. And when I tried to go to discover.com, it's like, the server dropped the connection. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, this wasn't even that. It just was like munging on. It was delayed loading and so delayed that it literally wasn't happening. So we might have an answer
Brian's
to this.
comment in the chat room. Too.
You exactly right. Brian Monroe's comment in the chat room. He says, if you go into control, system preferences, called it control panel, and you almost got me there, Brian. System preferences, iCloud. I do not have iCloud Private Relay Beta enabled on this machine. I need to check to see if I have it enabled on the machine downstairs, because I bet that would be at the core of this. Yeah. Okay. That would make sense. I'm looking, I'm hemming and hawing for time to see if I can log in quickly to that machine downstairs and confirm this before we move on. Indeed, I have Private Relay Beta turned on downstairs, so I will turn it off. And now I will go into Safari and go to Privacy Preferences, and the checkbox goes away. So it is very much part of Private Relay Beta. This is what I love
Brian Monroe.
I love about doing a live show is we're able to actually get to these things. It makes a quick tip and a not so quick tip, but that's okay.
Oh no, that was
We learned a thing. Yeah. Yep. Thank you, Brian Monroe. Thanks to everyone that joins us and helps out like this when we do this live.
Brian seems to know a little bit about Macs.
Brian Monroe is a smart dude. Yeah. No, she really is. Yeah. So MacGeekGab.com/live or live.MacGeekGab.com. I think either one of those will get you there. I know that either one of those will get you there. Perfect. Well, see this? We solved it. I had a question, it turned out. I thought it was a quick tip, but it turns out it was a question. Sometimes you don't even know. John, Bob has a quick tip, doesn't he?
I think so. Yes. Bob says, at work with Monterey, we have users that lose Wi-Fi connections. Even when their Mac is on power, and is set so it does not go to sleep in System Preferences, Battery, Power Adapter. It seems if the work users do not set Wake for network access, the Wi-Fi radio shuts off when the Mac is idle. The users at work suffer from the VPN into the work getting dropped, but if Wi-Fi is turning off when attached to NAS storage, it could be responsible for losing access to your Time Machine storage. Okay. And of course, where you want to go to set this up is System Preferences Energy. And you'll see a little checkbox. Wake for network access. So
is it System Preferences Energy Saver on a laptop? I think he's right that it's System Preferences Battery on a laptop. I think so. Pete, you have a laptop, yeah?
I do. Yeah, me.
Okay. Because I'm pretty sure there is like Energy Saver changes to battery when you're on a laptop. Yeah, so I think it's possible this would also need to happen though on a on a desktop machine. So it would be either or. System Preferences Powered. What did we even say? I'm not so used to Energy Saver. Thank you. System Preferences Energy Saver or System Preferences Battery?
you're right.
It would be easier if it were just power, but that's not how it is. So, yeah.
Okay. Thanks for catching that.
Yep. Perfect. Nice. Thank you, Bob. Good stuff. You want to take us to Patrick, my friend?
Yes. Okay. If you don't use Overcast, the first tip is to use Overcast.
Agreed.
For your podcatcher player.
Yeah.
I'm not a current user myself.
Oh, dude. Patrick's right. Like,
all right. And then he gives a
Nothing
little
more
tip
to say.
here. If you use Overcast, go to the settings by touching the gear icon and go to nitpicky details. I got a sense of humor. There, set the seek back and seek forward to times to a different amount of seconds. I set mine to 30 seconds forward and 15 seconds back. It makes it much easier to fast forward through sections you don't want to listen to, but still find the parts you want to listen to. Once you try it, it makes more sense. So.
Yeah. Overcast, there's a lot of things that Overcast does. This forward and backward thing also will map to your like if you have steering wheel controls either with CarPlay or with Bluetooth. I've had it work with both. So whatever you set to the back thing, if you hit back on the steering wheel, that would normally like change the radio station back or whatever. If you're Bluetoothed in or CarPlayed into your phone that's running Overcast, it will send that signal through and it'll go back to 15 seconds. The other thing that Overcast will do, very specifically for this show, that I heard from, I'll call them an anonymous listener. Sometimes there is a little bit of dead air on this show. For example, we just had it, right? Well, you were pulling up the next question. I do it too. The nice part is you can set Overcast if you use Smart Speed. Marco Arment is the programmer behind Overcast. He was also the first programmer behind Tumblr. So he's been doing this for a while. He built this audio playback engine that is entirely Overcasts, and Smart Speed will find those gaps and just shrink them. And somebody was saying they listened to they've been listening to the show for years on Overcast and then wound up, tuning into the live stream and they're like, wow, like the dead air is super frustrating when it's in real time, but Overcast makes it go away. It's like, there you go. So, yeah. And Overcast will keep it will speed things up and slow things down just to make the listening experience better. So, yeah, it's good stuff.
Have I never heard of this? Wow.
Yeah,
I'm
it's great.
stoked to try this out. Yeah.
Oh, it's the only way to listen to podcasts, in my opinion. Yeah. Audio podcasts. Yeah.
Now, I have a feature request. We had somebody write in, and I don't think we had an answer. Someone wrote in and said, is there a way I can get Umms out of an audio stream? And I'm not aware of a way to do that. Apparently, the person that wrote in watches videos. I don't know if they're self-help or whatever, but how do you get rid of the ums? I don't think there's a way to do it.
No. I don't think the AI has gotten, like, that's one of those things where a human is better than a computer currently with
Yeah,
that.
I remember when we used to do the Union podcast, I think he went in and manually took the ums out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It's the, I mean,
because you particularly when you're dealing with people who have never done it before or once or twice spoken into a microphone, the nervousness comes through and it gets ugly.
Yeah.
They don't want to sound like that. I mean, I hate the sound of my own voice personally, but some people will argue with that. They think I love the sound of my own voice, but to hear myself recorded, it's no fun.
Yeah, you have to get used to it.
Yeah.
And you also have to, and I'm certainly not perfect at this. I all the time, as you listeners know. I have learned, though, that it is okay to have some amount of silence between phrases. Like, it's natural. When you're having a conversation with another person, there is natural silence that happens. When you're talking and hitting microphones like I am, your brain says, all space must be filled. So while you're thinking, you say, that's what I'm thinking about. You know, it's like, it's extra. I notice it all the time. You know, we pre-record our ads for this show mostly, and I will, I edit them. Things like my verbal tics, like, things like that are the things I use to fill space while I'm processing what to say next. And I chop them all out of the ad reads. It's like perfect. Yeah. I just don't have time to do that for an hour.
Likes, and ums.
Likes, and ums. Yeah. There's a couple others that I use that I'm constantly taking out. It's like, but it does it does make me aware of them. So I, in theory, have gotten better over the last couple of years when we've been doing the ad reads. I don't know. One thing got better for me, though, recently, and then maybe we will talk about a couple of our sponsors after this, is I use my AirPods at my desk. Currently, my AirPods Gen 3 at my desk. And I hate it when I leave them in because I know I have another phone call coming up in 5 minutes. I use them as my AirPods are my favorite Bluetooth headset. So I leave them in between phone calls sometimes. And then when I get a text notification, I see the notification. I'm sitting at my computer. It's fine. But I do my phone calls from my phone. So my AirPods are linked to my phone. All of that's fine. But the notification comes in. I see it. And if I don't go to the Messages app immediately and read it so that Messages knows that I've clicked and read it, even if I've previewed it, it will begin speaking the message to me in my ear, which is sort of distracting if I have 5 minutes in between phone calls and I'm trying to get something done. So I figured out how to turn it off. You go into settings, notifications, announce notifications. Now, you can turn it off for everything, or you can granularly turn it on and off by app. Now, it turns out there's somebody making noise in the background. I don't know who that is. But for me, the feature was enabled, obviously, but it was off for every single app except Messages. So I think it's on by default for Messages and off for all others. But there you go. So that's my tip. Settings on your iPhone, notifications, announce notifications is the feature. And you can either, like I said, turn it off en masse or individually for different apps. Super handy. So.
Yeah, I had recently turned mine back on. In fact, it's a long story how I got it, but I got my AirPods Pro back. I loaned
Amazing.
them to my daughter. I got them back. Yeah, that is the amazing part. But some shows back, I recommended the Skull Candies, Air Candies, I think, or Indie Airs. That's what they are, which are amazing earbuds, particularly for the price. But oh my gosh! And then I got the AirPods back in, and the spatial. What's it called?
Spatial audio.
Yeah, spatial audio. Where if you turn your head, it sounds like it's coming from your iPad or your iPhone or even your Apple TV.
Yeah.
The sound is fuller and richer, and oh my gosh, yeah, they just you get what you pay for in life, right?
You do, yes, yeah. There's a phrase that I like called cheap and worth it.
Yes.
And There are many times, and sometimes, like, that's okay. I learned it from the reading the travel books of Neil Peart, who was the drummer from Rush, and he loved to ride his motorcycle between gigs, and he would have a riding partner with him, and he would tell his travel stories, and they loved to stay in cheap motels because they could park their motorcycles right outside the door of their motel, and they didn't care to spend lots of money on hotels. They might spend money on a dinner here or there or whatever, but they didn't. The motel was a room to sleep in. So many times he would write about, we were between these two cities and we stopped at this motel. In my travel log, I remember writing cheap and worth it. Yep, we've all experienced those motel rooms before. All right. Speaking of things that are actually worth it, I would love to talk about our first two sponsors, Mr. Braun, if that works for you.
Okay.
All right. Our first sponsor here is Kolide. Listen, this is at KOLIDE.com/MGG, of course. Kolide sends your employees important, timely, and relevant security recommendations for their Linux, Windows, and of course, Mac OS devices right inside Slack. So this means that Kolide is perfect for organizations which care deeply about compliance and security, but don't want to get there by locking down devices to the point where they become unusable. So instead of frustrating your employees, Kolide educates them about security and device management while directing them to fix important problems. And the folks at Kolide know that end users are IT admins' most significant untapped resource and are key to solving the most challenging to fix security issues, including things like instructing developers to set passphrases on unencrypted SSH keys, finding plain text two-factor backup codes, and teaching end users how to store them securely, and convincing employees to uninstall those evil browser extensions which might sell their browser history. Those are just some of the many use cases not solved by locking down devices. You can try Kolide with all its features on an unlimited number of devices for free for 14 days. No credit card required. Try it out at kolide.com/MGG. That's KOLIDE.com/MGG. And our thanks to Kolide for sponsoring this episode. Next up is Bare Bones with BBEdit 14. One of our favorite new features in BBEdit 14 is the ability to create notebooks instead of having untitled text documents all over the place. You can create notes from any convenient source, clipboard, etc. I was certainly guilty of this because Bare Bones is a fantastic place to put your text. It was sort of this ancillary use case for it. Well, they've embraced that, and notes are now automatically named and managed by the app. And now BBEdit 14 supports creating multiple notebooks in any desired locations. This is fantastic. Of course, this isn't what you're mainly going to use BBEdit for, or maybe you are. I use it for all kinds of things. That's one of them. The other is simple things like counting the number of words in a document or comparing two documents. My goodness, it is so good at that. On top of that, of course, you're able to edit all the code that you need to edit, and BBEdit is smart about when it opens up a file that has code in it, it starts highlighting things, not on disk, but just on screen so that you can really see what's going on. You can twist functions open and closed. It's amazing. You got to go check it out. Go to barebones.com/store. That's where you're going to be able to get your 30 days of fully functioning demo to try out, even if you've tried it out before. Go do it, barebones.com/store. And our thanks to BBEdit for sponsoring this episode. All righty. John, you want to take us to Henrik and maybe a solution for you and people like you having issues with older printers?
Yes. So, Henrik says, John actually got caught with that old printer. Here's a tip for using old PostScript printers on a modern Mac OS. And yes, PPD is short for PostScript Printer Description. So the blow tip only works on PostScript printers. Fortunately, my printer is both PostScript and PCL, which is the other common printer language.
Sure.
The PPD file can either be extracted from your old Mac or the latest available installer, which I don't have, but I do have the PPD file. Once you have the PPD file, it can be put basically anywhere except for documents or desktop folders synced with iCloud. The easiest way I found is to create a folder in the public folder inside the users folder. Name the folder something descriptive, like Brother Printer PPD, or in my case, GCC Printer PPD. And then just copy the printer into that folder. Then go to System Preferences, Printers and Scanners. Then click on the plus sign to add the printer. Select the printer, but instead of letting the Mac select the printer software to be used, you manually set the input field Use to the option Other. This will bring up a dialog where you can navigate to the PPD file.
Oh.
And Viola, your unsupported PostScript printer should now work on your modern Mac OS. And I haven't tried this yet, but
I think Pete will be in Paris next week and help us pronounce voila.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some people like music from a viola.
Yeah. VIOLA is viola.
Yeah.
VOILA is voila. Did that work for you, John?
I haven't tried it yet.
Seriously? It's just assumed that this would have been a topic of conversation. All right, well, give it a try and let us know.
But I tried something similar. It may have been where, I tried this, but the folder was on my desktop.
Okay.
Which he said it can't be there.
Oh.
So I think that's the mistake I made. So put it anywhere else except the desktop, and I think it'll work for me. But yeah, I tried this, and when I tried to select the PPD, they were all grayed out, and I'm like, bummer.
Interesting. And is it that it can be anywhere else, or does it have to be in your home folder inside a public folder with a capital P? Because that was Henrik's advice.
Yeah, I think that was the.
Yeah. Okay.
I think
it's
that's
not
the magic.
That's the magic. Okay. Well, let us know. Give it a shot, man. Yeah, that's great. Cool.
Yeah, because it's always nice to have those extra options. You can set
Totally.
I can print with the printer, but I don't get any fun things like use, like for example, this printer has a rear paper tray, but
Sure.
Which every now and then I use that feature, but now I can't because
Right.
it doesn't know it's there.
Well, if you put something in it, it doesn't treat it like a manual feed tray where if it senses something there, it just prints to that anyway.
No.
Okay.
As far as I know, yeah, it just assumes it'll take the paper out of the main paper tray.
Right. All right. Steve, on the subject of printers, Steve had a great little quick tip for us. He said, I found this helpful and I thought others might too. I got a new multifunction printer recently. By default, it chooses to print on both sides of the page. For my workflow, I don't always want to do that, and it would be better if single-sided was the printer's default, but I couldn't figure out a way to do that. But I have found that there is a way to set default printer settings inside macOS. It's not anywhere in the GUI that I can find, but I may have missed something. Is there a way to do it without having to edit individual settings? And I think there might be. There is in macOS, there is the printing system at its core uses a Unix standard called CUPS, the Common Unix Printing System. And you can access this via a web page. It is going to be at localhost :631 in Safari. Now, when you first do this, though, it probably will tell you that CUPS is not turned on. But you go to the terminal, and we'll put this in the show notes so you don't even have to think about it. But you go to the terminal and type in CUPS CTL and then web interface. Yes, you can just copy and paste it. But it will also tell you that right on the screen, and then you pull up this CUPS interface, and it will show you all kinds of things, and you can pull up a list of your printers there, and then you can go into each printer and you can start going in and changing things like the defaults and set default options. And on my printer, I can go in, and I'm showing this on the video for those of you that are watching, but I can set how two-sided printing on my printer works right here in the defaults. I have it to do the long edge portrait, but you could set it to short edge for landscape or off. If you want one-sided printing, you can set the default media size and all of these things. And it's right there on the web interface for, for that installation of Mac OS. So super handy little trick that lives inside of all of our Macs. So it is, you go to HTTP, not HTTPS, // localhost :631, but we'll put that in the show notes for you too. So fun stuff. I love this. Thoughts on any of that, guys, before we move on?
Too geeky for me.
Yeah, it is geeky. I know. No, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
No, I've got one printer in the basement and everything next to it, and
it just works.
Keep it up, and it just works right now.
That's the best. Yeah.
When it doesn't work, that's when I have to go back to this show and get the show notes.
There you go. The other place that you can do this is if the printer itself has its own web interface. Almost all network printers do, so that they are configurable over the web or over the local network, not over the web.
Right. Well,
you
there's
want me
that.
configuring your printer. You want you configuring your printer. Right. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you do want me configuring your printer. I don't know. But that's another way to do this and actually set defaults on the printer. And that's actually where the next question with Eddie was going, was that Eddie says, at work, I print to an Epson printer. The problem is that under the media and quality selection, it defaults to auto for both media type and feed from. For some reason, the printer always thinks I'm printing photos and picks the rear tray and photo paper. So this would have been sort of the opposite of your problem, John. Then the printer gives me an out of paper or jam error because there's never anything in that feeder. I can manually select the correct tray and paper type, but I have to do it every time I print. It seems kind of silly. And so that's where potentially going into the printer's settings via the printer's web interface might let you install, or let you set those defaults for the printer itself. So,
and Dave, how would you recommend someone find to get their printer IP? I mean, I know it's going to be different for everyone, 192.168 or 10.10. Whatever.
Yeah.
But generally, where's that going to hide?
That's a great question. Sometimes if the printer has a little display of its own, well, first of all, if it has a little display of its own, you might be able to set the defaults right there and not even worry about the web. Right. If it does have a display, oftentimes if you go to the network section of that display, it will show you the printer's IP address. Another way to get it is if you can trigger the printer to print one of its own status pages or test pages, it will show you that. And then finally, the last way I can think of is to look in your router's DHCP table and see if you can deduce. And often the printer will show up with like Epson or something as the name, and then you'll know, okay, that's the IP address for the printer, and then you plug that IP address into your web browser. So those are the ways I can think of. John, do you have any other ways of deducing what your printer's IP address is?
Thing?
For sure. Yeah, that's a great idea.
It's a nice utility which will survey your network and tell you what things are hooked up. And it usually does pretty good about guessing what type of device it is. Another one could be, like you said, your router. Like, for example, Eero will also show what type of device it thinks it's talking to.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, that's actually another thing I thought of is that my ancient printer actually has its own web interface. Now, I don't think I can use it to select the paper tray, or maybe I can.
You might be able to change the oh, yeah. I bet you could.
Yeah, so it's at an IP. So like you said, so the IP address of my laser printer is 172.16.1.100, which I set manually ages ago.
And that is a good thing to do. That was going to be my next piece of advice, was setting the IP address of your printer as a DHCP reservation so that you always know where it is and it never winds up just randomly changing on you. So yeah, that's how I've done it, is set a reservation.
Believe it or not, last I checked, this printer does not do DHCP.
What?
No, you have to set the IP address statically. Which is
On the
kind of
printer
weird.
itself?
Yes.
Oh, man. Well, it's 4 years old or something. So
Yes.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah.
Then,
All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's
then
possible. Sure.
Kiwi Graham says, go to System Preferences, Printer, Show Web Page. And it says it'll only work if you have the printer installed. If you don't have it installed, then Fing or iNet
Yeah.
will get you there. But if it's installed, there you go. Go ask.
There you go. Yeah.
Where is it?
Where is it? Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Fascinating. Cool. All right. We got some photo. I think we're done with printers for now. But if you have your printer questions or really anything else to add, feedback at macgeekgab.com is the way to find it.
Feedback at macgeekgab.com?
Yeah, Pete, I think he said feedback at macgeekgab.com.
Got it.
Indeed. Although that will never go away. I mean, I say never. Let's hope.
You done did it now.
Fingers crossed. I'm going to knock on some wood for the people listening so that you all know I did the things I'm supposed to do. I am 100% certain, in fact, that we will be opening up a Discord for all of you too, because it is obvious to me. I was talking to a bunch of other podcasters. We had a Backbeat Media podcasters just hang out where we all sort of share ideas. And I very much attend as Dave the podcaster, not Dave, from Backbeat Media. And it's awesome. Like, these meetings are great. I say we should have started doing them years ago. And one member of my staff has been saying we should have been doing them for years, but it takes me a little while sometimes. But anyway, speaking of taking me a little while, many of our podcasters are having great success with building a community or giving their communities a home in Discord, and I think we're gonna do that too. So we will have more to share on that as it develops, but it'll probably happen real soon. Might even happen, before the next episode is out. Can't promise that, but I think the more we overthink it, the worse it's going to be. So it might just be one of those things where we pull the trigger and let it evolve and see what happens. So we'll let you know. Now that we're done with printers, though, you want to take us to Bob and start a little segment about photos, Mr. Braun? For some reason, all day I've been wanting to call you Dr. Braun. So I think I'm just going to call you Dr. Braun because it's going to be easier for me if that's all right.
Everybody's getting a medical degree here.
That's right. I forgot. I totally forgot about my whole. I think I'm a doctor now.
In my corporate days, some people actually did call me Dr. Braun.
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure why, but
sure. Yeah, I also have no idea why I'm calling you Dr. Braun, but I'm pretty sure it's going to stick.
Well, there's Werner Von, right?
Oh yeah.
I don't think we're related though.
Yeah,
he made rockets or something like that.
He did.
He was a rocket scientist, right?
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
He did rocket surgery.
He did rocket surgery. Thank you, Pete.
Yeah. All right. So here's something else that Apple screwed up, in my humble opinion. Starting on or about March 22nd this year, new photos shot on my wife's iPhone have stopped automatically clouding to her iMac, yet they still automatically cloud to her iPad. What she really wants to do is for all new photos from her iPhone to cloud to her iPad and iMac, but doesn't particularly want all 35,911 photos on her iMac to be on her iPhone or iPad. With no option for photo stream, how do we accomplish getting all the new photos onto all three of her devices automatically without having to have all her photos on all three devices? Again, all she wants is for new photos to sync on all her devices. We have turned off then on again iCloud Photos and restarted the iMac. I don't know if I have a good answer to this. He did what I would have done, the dreaded turning it off then on again. But that didn't seem to work. I did find an Apple support article, Dave, and it makes some suggestions, so that's the best I got. The title of the article is "If My Photo Stream Isn't Updating," which it sounds like that's what's happening here. So,
what suggestions do they offer there? That would be the place to look.
Oh.
They say
Settings.
Make sure it's turned on. Turn it on and off again. Yeah. Okay. So nothing spectacular here. One place. Well, wait. Before we even get to this, I definitely want to make sure we all acknowledge that perhaps the most valuable thing we've gotten out of this question is clouding as a verb. Like, this is what a super efficient way to say what he said, uploading to iCloud, syncing with iCloud, like that's a lot to have to say and type. Clouding. I love it. Love it. We're gonna
good, yeah.
It's good. No, it's language efficiency. I love it. The one thing I would do, and I don't think he said that he did this, but it's possible he did, of course, is to check iCloud.com itself. You can see, what I call the truth, right, of the database there, because that's what iCloud has, and you get to see the photos that are on iCloud.com. So that's the first thing I would do, or the next thing I would do. Actually, the first thing I would do is exactly what he did. But going and seeing which devices are actually syncing properly and which aren't, because you may not know, right? Depending on the symptoms you're seeing, it might be hard to tell. And then, making a change on iCloud.com by deleting a picture, moving it into a different album, something, right? So see if that triggers a push back down. I had a thing I created, as I've mentioned on the show, I created a podcasting focus for all of my Apple devices so that when I am like this doing a podcast, I only allow notifications from YouTube people and Pete and John and Paul Kent, and who does Geek Gab with me, and Shannon Jean, who does Small Business Show with me. And that's it. Well, and last week I mentioned I added Allison to that list, which might turn into be a huge mistake, but because I need to take that out, but I don't think I have. But, that way I'm not disturbed. But if you folks text me in the middle of a show, like, hey, dum-dum, problem, I'll know, which is great. I also then built a Keyboard Maestro action, we'll call it. Or no, sorry. Yeah, I built a Keyboard Maestro action to set up all my podcasts, and I wanted it to set up the the whole, I wanted it to turn on focus too. It launches all my apps. It sets everything the way I need it set. There is no way to set a focus in Keyboard Maestro, but there is a way to trigger a shortcut from Keyboard Maestro. And so that's what I did. And I built a shortcut to turn on my podcasting focus. Well, the one device it didn't sync to is this one. I built it on another device. It was on my phone. It was on all my other Macs. It was on my iPad. It was not here. All I did was go into shortcuts on this Mac, and I decided it was a good opportunity to organize my shortcuts. You can put them all into folders now, which is great. Maybe you could always do that. News to me. So bonus quick tip for at least one person, me, maybe another. I built folders. I started moving things around. As soon as I did that, boom, the turn on podcasting focus shortcut appeared on this Mac. So it's, sometimes just making a change, turning it on and off again. There was no way with shortcuts to turn the syncing on and off again that I could find, but there was a way to make a change, and making that change forces it to then like launch into doing something. So making a change in different places when you're having a syncing problem can sometimes be the cure.
The boot in the backside.
The boot in the backside. Thanks, Pete.
I noticed that if you go to MacGeekGab.com, you'll get the show notes from this. And I noticed that you guys put in the support.apple.com is the primary place to go. And I would certainly go there first. But that being said, I also put a link in the show notes for a site called Mobikin, M-O-B as in Bravo, IKIN.com.
Sure. Okay.
And they have an entire article with 15 ways to fix photos not showing up, and some of them are plug your computer in, dummy.
Well, sure.
Practically to check if iCloud has enough storage space left but 15 different ways and certain methods to cover those. So that looks like a pretty thorough resource as well.
Brilliant. Thanks for putting that in there, Pete. Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
Thank you. And they may have mentioned what Bill is bringing up to us. So here's Bill's problem. My photo syncing on my iPad gets stuck every day, and I have to unstick it manually. This didn't always happen. Is this an iOS bug? Is there a setting I can change? I really want everything to sync always. So I got two suggestions. One would be look at the article that Pilot Pete has just linked to. The other one, Dave, is that I had run into this in the past. I couldn't find an article outlining this, but the thing is, in order to sync photos, you have to be on Wi-Fi and you cannot have the camera app running. Because I had this happen once. You know, I looked on, you know, I took a photo on my iPhone and I looked on my Mac and it wasn't there. And I'm like, well, why isn't it there? I couldn't find the article though. So that'd be the first thing to try. And the second thing to try would be the thing that Pete pointed us towards.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I don't know why they made that decision to not do it. I mean, you know, take a picture and it should beam it, you know, to the cloud. It should cloud it for you.
It's interesting. It doesn't do it with the camera app running, though. I hadn't even thought of that.
I have found battery level to be a thing that keeps some photo sync operations from resuming, right? Or causes them to pause. But I've also seen it on my Mac before too. And, you know, like a desktop Mac that's, if it's not plugged in, it's not running. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. That's an interesting thing. Huh. Yeah. I don't know.
Several people, you know, are keep it in the, what is the low power mode?
Yeah.
It won't do it in the background if you're in the low power mode on your iOS device.
That I wouldn't be surprised to find out that that's the reason for this. Do iPads have low power mode too, or just phones?
You know, I don't know.
I didn't think iPads did, but maybe it's just because I've never thought to use it because you know, the iPad battery is massive. So
I happen to have one right here. I'll see if I can get. The problem is it's not mine; it's my wife's. So if I can, no, there it is. Okay.
If you can unlock it, that's the key, right?
Right. Sorry, honey. Wandered through your iPad.
I while you answer that, I am curious. Pete's saying he used is using his wife's iPad, you know, which can be a personal device, a private thing. I got into my car is in for, you know, routine service or whatever. So I dropped it off at the dealership and my wife followed me down and picked me up. And when I got in the car with her, she was listening to some podcast, right? Like, you know, on her way down, she was alone in the car. And I felt like I was walking into her private sanctuary. Like it felt weird. And I didn't say anything about it. It was just like, oh, right. She's listening to a podcast. Like that's her thing. And then, of course, she immediately just turned it off. And, you know, we drove somewhere else. We drove to do an errand together. But I'm curious. I know some of you listen to this show and either other people with you choose to listen to it or they are indoctrinated by force or by just not by force, but, you know, by association, by osmosis. I'm curious, just in general, not necessarily with this show, but it would be interesting to know about this show too. For those of you that listen to podcasts, is it a thing that you share with others? Like a radio show that's just going on, they happen to get in the car and there it is. You might turn it down a little, but you wouldn't turn it off. Or is it the kind of thing where it's like, oh no, like I'm paying attention to that. You're now here. We're probably going to talk, so I'm going to turn it off. You know, is the podcast a one-person podcast listening, a one-person activity or a multi-person activity? I guess that's going to be my question to all of you. And it's a weird question. But, you know,
the answer is it depends.
Yes, right? I'm sure it does. So yeah, for me,
like this one, everybody should be listening to together and sharing with more and more and more friends.
Mm-hmm. I don't disagree.
Right? I mean, that's ought to be state law.
State law. Yeah, we're working on that. We've got our lobbyists hard at work down in. We're going to make it federal law, Pete. We figured we just do it once. We don't have to do it 50 times.
There you go. Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But I have an answer. At least on the 2013 iPad that my wife is still running 9 years, and it's still wow. You know, I mean, these things they're awesome. No low power mode in settings for the iPad battery.
Okay. That's not surprising.
That's
not surprising.
But yeah, no, back to your question. Hey, everybody share this with people. I shared this show with 3 or 4 people last week out on the road, you know, because I keep asking, how do you do that? Why are you doing that?
Yeah.
I'll share quick tips and
Yeah.
where'd you learn that? Go, funny you should ask.
Funny you should ask.
Yeah, no, I see her BSD junkie in our chat room says iPad will also pause syncing when on battery power and turn it on when charging.
Yeah. I mean, I've definitely seen that on my iPad. Like it's, and your phone will, depending on how you have things set, your phone will also only do it when it's on Wi-Fi, not on, cellular or things like that to save data. But yeah, for sure. It's the photo syncing is generally for me a nightly thing. When I plug my phone in, that's when it, like, all of those activities sort of, spring to life, if you will. So, yeah.
Which goes back to that whole age-old question. Is there any way, and I don't think there ever will be, a way to fully share a photo library? I guess the danger is we could both have it open at the same time.
Yes. Well, but it could be synced, Pete. Like you're right. Like trying to do it with the photo libraries as they currently exist would be a disaster. You'd have to really coordinate with the other person. And you couldn't use iCloud because iCloud always has the library open.
Right. Yeah. Right. And that's a big bone of contention with my wife. You have those pictures of the kids that I want, and I want to put it, sorry,
you
so
can
I try to remember
do shared,
to share them.
You can do shared albums, but that's a manual process. Like I wish I could share a smart album. Right?
How cool would that be?
That would be an interesting solution, but really, I don't know. Yeah, there are a lot of people. I understand the privacy thing, and my pictures are my pictures, and I don't want them shared. And that's fine. And I have no doubt if Apple were to implement something like this, they would make privacy like the first feature. That's fine. But there are a lot of people who say, I want a family photo album, and every picture I take, I want to be in that album with my, with the people I've already pre-trusted,
Right. So when she goes to do a Christmas card or something, she can find that picture of the kids that was taken at the waterfall or.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
but here's the thing,
do this
Pete.
with family sharing?
No,
it's horrible.
No.
Oh, okay.
It's horrible.
No, it's not.
I think, did Google Photos have the answer to that? I was using them for a while, and I forget why I moved away from it. And then actually, here's another option. And Dave, you may be doing this, the Synology.
Yes.
Photos, right?
Yes.
So have you moved away from Apple Photos to Synology Photos?
No, we still use Apple Photos because it's super easy. It's built into every device we have. It works well, other than this, and we already pay for our Apple One subscription, right? So yeah, it's totally it's there. We have all the storage we need, et cetera, et cetera. So we use it, but I also sync all my photos over to my Synology. And then there you do have this option of sharing your entire library or parts of your library in lots of flexible ways. So
I've backed mine up to Synology using the Synology Photos app, but I haven't gotten anything beyond that. So I need to
you can dig into it.
Into that and see.
Yeah. No, it's one thing that I just thought of as we were having this conversation, perhaps a reason. Well, it's a solvable problem, but it would be a problem. Let's say the three of us decided to share our photos, right?
Okay.
We're all one happy family here. So the photos John takes show up on our devices and vice versa. Okay, great. How do let's say we want to add, one of us wants to add a fourth person. Okay. Like the family expands.
Okay.
How do we all, like, if you, Pete, decide, okay, I'm going to add my wife to this because I want her to see my photos too, in addition to John and Dave. Well, if we're all seeing the same library, now are you sharing the photos you take and the photos we take with your wife? Like, did we just become a family of four instead of a family of three? And
I think so, because the photos she takes are now going to jump in there.
Right. So did John and I consent to this? Because now my photos aren't just shared with you and John, they're shared with you and John and your wife.
Right.
Right. So they're like, that starts to become a tricky.
That becomes the privacy issue. Absolutely.
Right.
Like, in a family, less of an issue, but.
Right. Well, maybe. Like,
in theory,
everybody's family's dynamic is different. I'm not here to judge.
Absolutely.
But I know some people that would absolutely not want to share their photos with their spouse. Right. Like that, and it's like, okay. So it's just and that's fine. I don't say that judgmentally. I mean, there might be a scenario that I would happily judge, but in a general sense, it's not judgmental. I get it. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know.
John, you're a bachelor. You got it easy, man.
That's right. John Green in the chat suggests using Plex to manage and share photos, and that is another good way to do this.
That's a great idea. I've got Plex. I've got some photos up on there, and
yeah.
So she could go look at them on the TV at any time, and I assume she could go grab them right off the.
Oh, you can sync your phone to the Plex library too. Like Plex is not just for the TV, right? So no, photos is a thing. Okay. I've never used Plex for photos, but I've done when I was doing a lot, when all of my Apple user group sessions moved online because of, COVID and quarantining and all that stuff. That was finally my opportunity to teach Plex to people, because teaching Plex at the front of a room stinks. Because you need to see the little things on the screen. And when I'm in front of, even 10 people, let alone 100 people or 200 people, not everybody can look over my shoulder. Well, on Zoom, guess what? Everybody can look over my shoulder. It's amazing. And so I started doing Plex, and it's been fantastic. I'll probably do it again. There's some groups that are still not getting together in person. During those, it became a bit of a jam session, most of them, where it wasn't just me teaching about Plex. It was all of us sort of teaching one another how we use Plex. And I encountered quite a few people who are using Plex for their photos and would share their libraries with us. And it's a pretty powerful thing. So, yeah, good call, John Green. I like it.
I love Plex, and I don't know what their they have a lifetime subscription.
They do.
10 or 12 years ago, it was 75. I think it's a little more than that. I think it's about 100, 120 or something now.
I think you're right. I think but it's worth it.
Oh my gosh. That is the one app that I am so glad for 10 or more years now.
Yeah.
All my movies, TV series that I want to see and share. Like my wife and I watching the Yellowstone now together, even when I'm overseas.
Yes.
So cool.
It's cool. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I have a cool stuff found. There is a new Plex feature in the wild, and I want to talk about it because I've messed with it a little bit. The next thing that I want to do is talk about our next two sponsors, if that works for you, Mr. Braun.
Okay.
All right. Hey, who doesn't love to live well, to be perfectly at ease, in comfort, and in style? Our sponsor, Hunter Douglas, can help you do just that with their innovative window shade designs that have gorgeous fabrics and control systems so advanced they can be scheduled to automatically adjust to their optimal position throughout the day. This is the right time of year to be doing this, right? It's starting to warm up here in the U.S., and it's time to start thinking about the house. We're doing all kinds of projects, and, Hunter Douglas is stuff that we're eager to test out here too. And you got to go to hunterdouglas.com/MGG so that you can see the way the shades diffuse the harsh sunlight. They make it so that you can enjoy the view outside the window while protecting your privacy inside. And of course, they provide this superior insulation that keeps you warmer in winter, cooler in summer, and lowers your utility bills. And then you can use Hunter Douglas's PowerView technology to automatically reposition your shades. They can be set to do this automatically so that you get the perfect balance of light, privacy, and insulation, morning, noon, and night. Amazing stuff. Visit hunterdouglas.com/MGD today for your free Style Get Smarter design guide with fresh takes, creative ideas, and smart solutions for dressing your windows. That's hunterdouglas.com/MGG for your free design guide. And our thanks to Hunter Douglas for sponsoring this episode. Most coffee is dull, stale, questionably sourced, but it's easy to get stuck in a rut and drink what you always have. Well, you know what Shannon, my co-host on another show, says? That a grave is just a rut with both ends closed off. So instead of standing in front of all the options in your grocery store, let Trade Coffee help you find something new to love. Trade sells the freshest roasted and ethically sourced beans from America's best independent roasters. They ship free to you as often as you like, whole or ground. So whether you're a coffee nerd or you just want a better daily cup, Trade's real coffee experts taste test over 400 roasts and use their tech to match you to your ideal coffee based on your preferences and brewing methods. You take their coffee quiz to get started. I did this, and coffee is not part of my daily habits. Caffeine is not part of my daily habits, but I have it occasionally. I've never really liked coffee. until Trade came on board as a sponsor. I learned that coffee can be delicious, and you can learn this too. Here's the thing. You, our Mac Geek Gab listeners, right now, Trade Coffee is offering a total of $20 off your first 3 bags when you go to drinktrade.com/MGG. So to get started, take their quiz at drinktrade.com/MGG and start your journey to your perfect cup. That's drinktrade.com/MGG for $20 off your first 3 bags. Don't get caught in a rut. Visit drinktrade.com/MGG, and our thanks to Trade Coffee for sponsoring this episode. All right, so Plex, they added this week a feature that has been, I had forgotten how long it had been on their request list. I had voted for it. They have one of these things online where you can, like, you get, I don't know, 5 votes or something, and you can pick the things you want to vote for. They added a watch list, and it's amazing to me that this has never existed before with Plex, because it seems like such an obvious thing. Every streaming service has it, where you say, these are the things that I want to watch. Yes, I have all this stuff in my library, but I want to watch, this movie next, or I want to watch this series next, or something like that. So they added this watch list. It's amazing. They call the whole suite of features Plex Discover. I've used it. It's okay. It's definitely in beta. What the weird part about this, guys, is that Plex usually rolls out beta features to beta users and lets them sort of come to fruition. The whole new syncing, downloading thing that now is the default for Plex was in beta for probably a year before it ever came out of beta. But the beta was a very public thing. I think with this, they wanted to make a splash. They saw this as a big feature. I mean, I see it as filling a huge hole, but whatever, potato. They decided to do this, and so the beta is in the public releases of Plex. It is not ready for prime time yet, in my experience. It has gotten better since the day it was released. When it was released, I added a bunch of shows to my Plex library, or to my watch list. They were already in my Plex library. And what's cool is, the reason they call it Plex Discover is because you can add things that are not in your Plex library. You can tell it, I have Netflix and Apple TV Plus and Hulu, and then you can add shows that you don't have the downloads for, and it will say, oh, you can go watch, when you say, I want to watch this, it says, oh, that's available on Netflix. You say you have Netflix, and depending on the device you're on, it'll even link you to that, which is amazing. So I added a bunch of the things that Lisa and I watch, and then I went in and I marked episodes that we have already watched as episodes we've already watched. And the first thing that happened was it removed those series entirely from my watch list. So I was like, that's cool. I'm like, I know that there are episodes we haven't watched. They should still be here. And I went, and it was like, do you want to add this to your watch list? I'm like, yeah, just like I did 5 minutes ago. Cool. But that's fine. They were able to fix that within hours. So that part was great. So that's fixed. You mark things as watched. They still stay in your watch list. The problem is, at least as of the last time I checked, when you go to, if I go into my watch list and I say, I want to play this show, it doesn't tell me first of all, it doesn't tell me which shows have unwatched episodes. So I have no idea whether there's new content for me or not. My watch list just contains everything, which is better than it containing nothing. I get this. That's improvement, but not the kind of usefulness that we want. They are working on this. So I think, we have to treat this feature as beta, because they call it beta, but it truly is like feature incomplete is what I will say. So maybe even alpha, right? It is not to the point of what I would call MVP, minimum viable product, right? I think you've got to track and surface the status of whether things are watched or unwatched, especially when you start comparing it to what Netflix does or what Apple TV does with its Watch Next thing and all of that. But it's great to see this. So I'm stoked about it. I'm, in fact, really excited. Just want to set everyone's expectations. Like, You're not going to turn it on and go, yay, or maybe you will. Maybe it works perfectly for whatever you folks want to do. But it's fantastic that they've finally started this. So excited about it.
Interesting. What little playing I've done with it, it found it, but I hadn't tried any of the, hey, I've watched these shows and I haven't watched those, which Plex does a very good job of that, which is in your library going, hey, you've watched 20 minutes of this. Do you want to resume? I mean, it'll take you right to your last point.
It's great. If I know that if I have an entire season of something in Plex and I just go to that, forget about the watch list. If I just go, it will tell me, oh yeah, you've watched, 11 of 14 episodes. So, next up is episode 12. And that's still there. I just don't know why my watch list won't show me that. It's weirdly disconnected, but it'll get connected. I have no doubt. Like they're on this. So, yeah.
And the latest, oh, sorry, John, you were going to say.
Oh, no. Quick tip with Plex. Don't access a friend's Plex server when they're encoding stuff.
Well,
that happened to me when I was accessing yours, Dave. And I got the message I never saw before. It was like, sorry, insufficient bandwidth. And I'm like, what? And I checked my connection. Connection was fine. And I'm like,
yeah. Well,
so I don't know if you need to get a beefier.
I do my Plex on Synology. What I would recommend, assuming like for me, I have a fiber connection, right? So lots of, I have a gigabit upstream. And I would recommend, and every time I go to an Airbnb or a hotel or whatever, Plex defaults to transcoding when remote. So it will say, oh yeah, I'm only going to send the, 4 megabit per second or 3 megabit per second file from my server at home to, my Airbnb and wherever I am, it doesn't matter. And I have enough bandwidth to send the raw file upstream. So make sure you set your Plex client on your Apple TV or your iPad or your computer or whatever to get the full speed thing, because then you don't have to worry about my server's ability to transcode, because it's just going to send you the data, and you'll get the full 4K if I happen to have the, if I've ripped the full 4K thing with potentially with Atmos sound, although getting Atmos sound from Plex via Apple TV to a soundbar is nearly impossible, but that's just because of an Atmos, how Atmos works. But yeah, so.
Right. And John, you brought up a feature there with that people may not be aware of, which is you can share your server with, you can invite friends to watch your movies, your TV shows that you have, and vice versa. So,
yeah, it's great. I love that part of Plex. I love that I can just be anywhere, and as long as I can
watch your stuff,
access a Plex client. Most TVs have them. So it like, even when I was, I think in the hotel I was in, I was able to add a Plex client to my TV. It's great. One piece of advice though, if you do that while you're traveling, whether it's Plex or Netflix or Apple TV, if you log into something, I make a checking out of whatever, checklist in my Apple Notes, and I share it with people that I'm traveling with. So if I'm traveling with the family or just with Lisa or whatever, I share that note and I make it a checklist. So when I sign into Plex, I put on the list, sign out of Plex. And when I'm ready to check out of the room, I go through and it's like, yeah, okay, I got to sign out of Apple TV and I got to sign out of Plex and, Netflix if we happen to use all three or whatever. So don't forget, because you don't want to leave yours. I can't tell you how many Airbnbs I've gotten to, and it's like, oh yeah, it's signed into the account of the last person or the person that was here 6 months ago.
Nice.
Yeah, it's great. Hey, speaking of traveling and not traveling, Apple's WWDC has been announced. It will run the week of June 6th, and it will be online, as we have seen in the last 2 years. Except the first day, there will be some amount of seats available for humans at Apple Park in Cupertino to gather together and watch the pre-recorded live streams of the keynote and the State of the Union, which I always call Keynote Part 2. So I'm not sure how one will procure a ticket for this. I don't know how in demand they will be. There is value in getting together with other humans, for sure. Especially I've always maintained that I can say it experientially now, having been able to go to South by Southwest in person last month, to go to Podcast Movement Evolutions in person last month. There is so much more to a conference than just watching the speakers speak, right? It's the hallway track is what we always call it at the conference. The people, we were both interested in that session, and now let's communicate with each other and meet each other and form relationships, but also just learn together. So I'm curious to see how that will evolve, but it's interesting that they will not be, at least for this year, returning to a live presentation. It will be people gathering in a room to watch the pre-recorded presentation. Now, will Tim Cook come on the stage before the thing and welcome the people that are in the room? I'm sure. Like I would be surprised if that kind of thing didn't happen. But it sounds like the meat of the presentation will no longer be a live thing. And I don't think that's bad. Like they're pre-recorded productions for these presentations over the last 2 years have been so much better than the live ones. Although the energy of a live demonstration and all of that, there's some value to it. But in terms of being able to efficiently communicate this stuff, nothing beats the pre-produced things that Apple's been doing. So I don't know, just something I wanted to share. Yeah. I don't know if either of you guys have thoughts about any of that.
I've never been to one. I would like to go, but not this year.
Not this year. That's right. You walked me to.
That's right. I remember that. It was in San Jose, right?
A Steve Jobs event in San Jose. Yeah, we couldn't. We tried to weasel you in. I'm like, I have one of my other Mac Geek Gab co-hosts with me. Can we? They're like, is his name on the list? I'm like, you could put it on the list. They're like, yeah, we're not.
Here's a pen. Write it down.
Here's a pen. Yeah.
But at least Pete knows the way to San Jose.
I do indeed.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you have to even fly the plane there, I bet.
I do indeed.
Yeah.
My current plane doesn't go there.
Is the runway too short?
Probably not.
Okay.
But you just, it's 777 is limited the number of, we do Seattle and Los Angeles, Phoenix.
Okay.
Houston, Atlanta, and Newark, and Memphis. Oh, and Indy. But that's it as far as I know in the domestic U.S.
A 777 can't land at SFO?
Could.
It could.
It could, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh.
But I'm just saying that's our current route structure.
Your route
those
structure.
Okay. Those are served more by 767s and MD-11s.
Okay.
Such, but yeah.
Like, wait, the 777's too popular of a
plane.
It's
an amazing short field takeoff and landing airplane.
Really?
It's got so much power you can't see straight. It is over. I think it's over 100,000 pounds a side now per can or per engine, I should say. Yeah. If you guys, I'm telling you, when there's times I've never seen anything like this in my life, we do reduced thrust takeoff to save the engine because, if you went max power every time, you'd really smoke your engines.
Okay. Yeah.
We take off with the engines frequently in the 83% power.
Really?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And so when you go to climb power, the engines actually throttle up, not down, to go to climb power.
Really?
When every other heavy airplane I've ever flown, you take off, 98, 100, 110%. Don't ask me how you can get to 110% power, or thrust, but you can. It's engineering. It's magic. It's engineering, but
not math.
Right.
That's not math.
No. But then when you get to 1,500 feet for climb power, you actually throttle back to 95%, 98%. This airplane, you take off at 82% and you get climb power and it throttles up to 90%. It's wild.
That's crazy. Yeah. Crazy. Huh. Amazing.
Okay.
Amazing.
There's our little aviation detour for the day.
No, I love the aviation stuff. That's fun for us. Yeah. Where are we on time? We really should end.
I want an hour 10, 12.
Yeah, an hour and 14 is where we are right now. I do want to do a little bit of show and tell. I mentioned that my most recent travels, while we're on the subject, were greatly enhanced, especially my ability to work during my recent travels was greatly enhanced by having and traveling with a portable monitor. And I wanted to talk about another one that I've been checking out, which is the ASUS ZenScreen, which is a 15.6 inch monitor here. It is portable, flat, super lightweight, comes in a little case, and it's amazing. It all is powered by USB-C, driven and powered by USB-C. So you just need one cable from, for me, from my laptop to the device, and that's it. Power, everything else goes right along with it. And it's fantastic. For those of you watching the video stream, you can see, but it's got this little kick out stand that sort of comes out the back of it to let you set different angles for how you want it to sit. And it's like super simple. There's nothing to say about it. You plug it in and it works. And that's the part I love about it. So, yeah, it's the ASUS ZenScreen. It's 15.6 inches. It's the MB16AC, they call it. But yeah, I'm super stoked with it. It's such a game changer for traveling. Or honestly, I'm thinking of setting this up at the desk in the house because I don't really have a computer station at the house. I have, the office and the studio. But if I set this up at the house and I can just plug in, there are times where it's much, all right, hey, who doesn't love to live well, to be perfectly at ease and comfort and in style? Here. Our sponsor, Hunter Douglas, can help you do just that playing the ads, with their innovative window shade designs, but have gorgeous fabrics. Not really.
I didn't touch nothing. Wasn't me. No one saw me.
It was you, Pete.
It was not me. No.
Oh.
I was not touching my computer.
Well, it wasn't me. John, was that you?
It was Allison.
I was entering a password in a dialogue, so I don't know how that happened.
Must have been Allison.
All right, we'll blame Allison. Yeah, I just started playing the ad video. But yeah, no, it's this. It's. I am used to working on two screens, so things like I don't know. Most everything I do, I like to have two screens. I like to see two full windows up, and often I like to have two browser windows up, looking at something in one and working in another, because there's so many web apps now that having that second screen is a really handy thing. So
I like the price point on that. That's like $229.
$229. That's it. Yeah, exactly. You're not going to break the bank with these kinds of things. So yeah, it's good stuff. Good stuff.
A little cheaper than an iPad Pro,
A little. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And bigger. Bigger screen. Yeah. If all you're using it for is a big screen now, obviously,
there's that.
An iPad Pro has a little bit more oomph to it, but there you go. All right. Well, that does bring us to the end of things here. Just one technical glitch. I'll take it. For those that watch either the video stream or the little snippets of the video stream that Sadie chops up to do just a quick tip or a review segment or a question segment or whatever, we are working to do a lot more real-time video production. So those of you that were listening wouldn't be aware of this, but we were constantly moving, and Pete, you were a huge help with this today. Thank you.
You shouldn't have given me the keys to that technology.
Well, it's fine. Worse things have happened than jumping into an ad read midstream. But we were focusing on the speaker at different times and showing more
banners up,
screen grabs and banners and showing questions from the audience. But I will say that these things really are mostly for post-production stuff, the little snippets that we're creating. The show is an audio show and will remain an audio show by definition and by priority. So when we start talking about something that's shown on the screen, we will be continuing to describe it for you so that you don't miss out if you are just listening. And even saying just listening is wrong. If you are listening, there's certainly, if you want to watch us do this, then there's the video stream. It's at macgeekgab.com for every episode. But it is still very much an audio show. All right. Well, I think that brings us to the end. The band's playing. I'm ready to go get lunch. It's all the good things. Yeah.
Speaking of bandwidth, there's the band.
There's the band. Bandwidth. That would be a funny name for a band, like a geeky band.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that would have been like a good name for the Macworld All-Star Band. Band width. Yeah. I don't know. It would have described what happened to each of us members of the band over the years. We would gain width.
Eventually become the wide band.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yeah. You could do weddings. You could be the wedding band. I'll stop now.
Yes. Yeah. No, this is great. I love the back and forth. It's outstanding.
So you were bandying it about? Is that what you're?
Man, the bandying about. There you go. I like it. That's good. It's great. All right. Thanks for hanging out with us, folks. Thanks for checking out our sponsors. Make sure to visit MacGeekGab.com for everything. You can sign up for our mailing list so that you get the show notes delivered to your inbox every week right after the episode comes out. I've actually changed the timing of that, so if the episode comes out Monday morning, you get the show notes Monday morning. I didn't have it that way in the past, and now I do, and I'm really happy about that. Small things. But go there, you can see the show, get the show notes, and you can also go to MacGeekGab.com/sponsors to see all of our sponsors, and that, of course, includes the ones we mentioned in this episode. HunterDouglas.com/MGG, DrinkTrade.com/MGG, BareBones.com, Kolide.com/MGG. Thanks for hanging out. Make sure to subscribe at MacGeekGab.com/calendar if you want to join the live stream. Dr. Braun, I got us into this mess, my friend. Would you like to help us get out?
I'm going to give you some doctoral wisdom, and that wisdom is don't get caught.
Made up.